What I always tell people is this: you have to monitor your self-talk. Monitor your self-talk. If you go around tell people, oh, I have a horrible memory, I'm not smart enough, I'm getting too old, fill in the blank. First of all, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Does that make sense? The worst habit, and you're gonna hate me for saying this, the first hour of the day is touching your phone. It's the worst thing you could do. Motivation is about energy management. You know, time management is one thing, but really life should be about priority management. The one thing that's equal in this room, it's not your income, it's not your connections and network, it's not your education levels. Everybody has different, right, external. But the one thing that is constant is we all have what? 24 hours in a day. And so if you imagine every single morning your bank account, you automatically, every morning when you wake up, there's extra $86,400 in there. And here's the thing, at midnight, whatever you didn't invest and use is gone. And that's how I look at time, right? We have 86,400 seconds in a day, and whatever you're not investing in it into something for your happiness, for your health, for something that's gonna outlast you, then we lose it every single day. So priority management, the way I think about it is, the most important thing is to keep the most important thing, the most important thing. I'll say this again. The most important thing is to keep the most important thing, the most important thing. And when I'm talking about your energy is everything. And so people could zap your energy. We all need people in our life that encourage us. We all need people in life that challenge us. We all need people in life that cheerlead for us, that help encourage us, that give us courage, right? How many of you found that person, know that person in your life? And if you haven't found that person, be that person. Be that person for somebody else. Especially be that person for yourself. I think in this culture, it's so important that we fall in love with the person in the mirror who has been through so much, but is still standing. And part of self-care and self-love, tactically, is remembering when you say yes to somebody or something, you're not saying no to who? To yourself. That sometimes the way to become limitless is setting some boundaries and borders on your time, you know, on your energy, on some of your emotions, because you can only give what you have, right? And so I call everybody here a grow giver, because you grow so you have more to give. And that's nature. Everything in life grows, and everything in nature has to be able to give back into the big system, right? But coming back to motivation, the keys are, if you want to get yourself to do something, you haven't yet done it, come up with the reasons first. Feel it, allow yourself to feel it, even if it's painful, because it gets you to move. And then secondly, give yourself energy, because if you don't have the energy to do that, you're not gonna do the thing. And then I said, is this it? Is this the magic formula for motivation? Having a reason and having energy. And I said, does this work in 100% of the cases? And I was like, no, it doesn't. Because if the thing that you're not motivated to do is either too big or unclear, you're not gonna take action. Does that make sense? Like if you're motivated to get in a great relationship, that's way too big, right? If you're motivated to start an online coaching business, right? That's a big thing, and that could be intimidating and be confusing. And the goal, though, is to take it into a small, simple step by asking yourself one question: what is the smallest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal? The smallest action where I cannot fail. And how it comes back to energy is it requires very little effort and very little energy. And it helps piggyback on a principle in memory called the Zeigarnik effect. The Zeigarnik effect, there's a psychologist, her name was Zeigarnik, and she was in a cafe in Europe, and she noticed that the waitstaff would remember everyone's order until the order was delivered. And as soon as it was delivered, it's kind of like, have you ever taken a test, like you crammed the night before, you didn't study using any of these techniques, you just crammed it in your mind, and the next morning, nobody could talk to you because you don't want anything to fall out. And you can't wait to take the test, and as soon as you take the test, what happens to the information? It's gone. The mind doesn't like to have open loops. And so the waitstaff, what she realized, would remember all the orders because it was an open loop. That's why, these video streaming shows, right? They get you to binge watch because they open a big loop right before the show ends. And so you're like, just one more tonight. Just one more. One more video, right? One more, just fun. And then it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you aren't doing anything that Dr. Bruce talked about in terms of your sleep, right? But it's meant to mentally hijack you, like fear does, right? And so the goal here to be motivated constantly, not in a hypey jump on chairs kind of way, is tap into your reason to do that task. Make sure you have ample energy using good, just lifestyle, biohacking, whatever gives you the energy, the food, the stress management, so on. And then finally, break that into something so small you can't fail. Because little by little, a little becomes a lot. A lot of people say, oh, I have a bad memory, right? They always think I have memory, or I have focus, or I don't have focus, or I have creativity, I don't have creativity. I want you to scrap that. Creativity is not something you have, it's something you do. Focus is not something you have, focus is something you do. Energy is not something you have or don't have, it's something you do. Memory is not something you have, it's something you do. And what's the benefit of turning it into a do, as opposed to something you have? What's the benefit? You have control over it, because you could put it into a process. It becomes a strategy, because there's a strategy for reading faster. There's a strategy for remembering names. There's a strategy for having focus. And it's a verb, not a noun, right? And so the goal here when we're talking about this, memory, for example, there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There is no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's just a trained memory and an untrained memory. Does that make sense? Now, here's the thing. I grew up with these learning challenges. I had all these difficulties all through school, all through elementary, middle school, junior high, high school. I had all of these challenges. At the age of 9, I remember a teacher looking at me thinking I wasn't either smart enough to understand what she was saying or wasn't paying attention. She was talking to another adult, and she said, "That's the boy with the broken brain." And I was like, at 9 years old, right? And so those kind of identity issues, those beliefs, does that make a difference? Yes, right? And a lot of people believe that they can't do certain things. They can just never remember names. So I could teach them a strategy, but if the belief is not changed, what happens? It's not, because it becomes self-fulfilling. I remember running a marathon, and preparing for it, I read a chapter of one of the books, and it was on the psychology of running a marathon, right? The mental part. And it said this verbatim, word for word. It said, your brain is like a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you programmed your supercomputer not to. Isn't that interesting? What I always tell people is this: you have to monitor your self-talk. Monitor your self-talk. If you go around tell people, oh, I have a horrible memory, I'm not smart enough, I'm getting too old, fill in the blank. First of all, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Does that make sense? A lot of people like, oh, I'm so forgetful, I'm so busy, which that whole busyness really bothers me. Like where people, how are you doing? I'm just so crazy, so stressed, so busy. It becomes like a badge of honor that people wear all the time. And then what do you start reinforcing? Being busy, right? But here, going back to this, your self-talk is the program that will run, so you want to be mindful, right? And stand guard to your mind, because your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. All your limitations, for the most part, are learned. You're born with a blank slate, right? I wasn't born thinking I was broken. Is that fair? But what set the frame on that box were my environment, my experiences, the expectation. I always alliterate everything, so 3 E's. Environment, experience, expectations of other people. And my thing is to break out of that mindset is, when I'm spending time with these seniors, is I always hear, yes, I help them to polish off their memories, but when it calms down, you always hear regret. Like living your dreams, let's be really frank, can be scary. But you know what's scarier? Not living them. Tomorrow we know is not guaranteed. So my thing is, why aren't we running towards our dreams like we're on fire? Because we have this one life to be able to kind of figure out in this lifetime.